Hi everybody, welcome back to another Q&A video. Those of us who are estranged from our families often get the same questions. Why do we talk about it publicly? Do we even still love them? Why don't you just give them a call? And in this video, I am going to answer some of these tough questions head on. And let me just get right to it. And the first question is actually, there are two separate questions, but they're both related. So let me read both of these comments and then I'll respond to them. And I am reading because I have the questions written down here on my laptop. The first person said, I don't remember hearing you say you love your children and grandchildren in the videos I've seen. I'm not saying that you don't love them, but maybe they think that. Okay, and now the second comment says, YouTube has invited me to comment, so I will. I've watched a few of your videos in full, carefully listening to what you have to say. First, I hope you eventually find peace in the situation. And secondly, I wish you all the best with your channel. It's great to be able to share. One thing I've observed is I haven't heard anything positive said about your daughters or any sense of pride about their achievements in life. Also, your love of your daughters hasn't come across to your audience, whether intentional or not. I understand that this channel is about your feelings, and I respect that. I wish you well in your endeavors. Take care. First of all, thank you for both of these viewers for these very great questions. So it is true. I have not expressed love for my children and grandchildren in my videos. I would like to thank these viewers for asking in a respectful manner, but it is true, I have not, and it has not been intentional. That being said, when I came across these questions, it did cause me to reflect on why I may not have done that. And I first want to say that the verbal expression of love has always been very, very difficult for me. I did not grow up in an environment where that was shown. It was never told to me. I wasn't hugged. So I just did not grow up that way. And then my father remarried when I was a teenager, and he married a woman who was the complete opposite, who did express feelings in that physical kind of way. And it was at that time that my father began telling me he loved me and hugging me and that type of thing. And I found it very, very awkward at the time. I was super uncomfortable. With that being said, as time has gone on, I've improved in that regard significantly. It still lurks in my mind somewhat. It still feels awkward to me. I did tell my children I loved them when they were growing up, and I did hug them, although upon reflection, I probably and could have and should have done that more. So I am acknowledging that. This is especially in regards to my two oldest daughter, because my youngest daughter is 12 years younger than my middle daughter. So I had improved in that regard a whole lot more by the time she was growing up. So I wanted to acknowledge that first of all. I realize everybody's perceptions are different, and it's possible that they think that I don't love them, but I don't know. In any of our communications, they've used words to describe me like toxic and delusional, and said I don't meet their expectations. So, that's what I've heard rather than their expression of what's really going on. Talking about love, I feel it would be a trigger for me. I've had to develop this sort of detachment, if you will, to be able to talk publicly about this without breaking down. I feel like if I avoid verbal expressions of love, that would protect myself emotionally. Because I sometimes get this internal self-talk where I say, I love them so much, but they hate me. And that's a very triggering thing. I am very aware that my family is watching my videos and listening to what I have to say. And based on their past behavior, if I were to verbally express my love and pride for them, I can just picture them laughing and scoffing and dismissing my feelings, saying, no, she doesn't. What a joke. She's delusional. So that's part of it as well. And I know I'm not here for anybody's approval, and I'm not here for their approval, but I do care what they think. But in my response is, let them think what they want. I can't control what they think. I know what I'm worth, and I refuse to let their actions define me. Their perception is it's on them, not me. So I hope, I found it interesting to reflect upon why I don't talk about my love for them and take pride in their accomplishments. I do, I'm just not verbally expressing it. They have, all three of my girls have some very, very great qualities. They're all different, unique in their own ways, and I love them for who they are, and my love for them is unconditional. I might not like their behaviors, but I still do love them. Moving on to the next question. I wonder what your relationship with your ex-husband is like. Often children hang with one or the other. In-law problems are very common. And that's a very fair question. It is very common for children to align themselves with one parent or the other, even in cases where their parents are still together. I've heard so many stories of where the estranged child is just estranged from the mother and the father is in the same house and still has a relationship with that person. And I can't even imagine that kind of situation. I think that's a whole thing in and of itself. And then there are the in-laws, and I also have heard a lot of stories about the in-laws, and I read about how the estranged daughter or son will be close with their in-laws, and while you as the parent are just out. And that's like a whole nother level of pain in my opinion. And now about to the question about my ex-husband, I have talked about him a little bit briefly in a couple of my other videos and talked about how he aligned with the negative family narrative that was passed down onto me, beginning with my mother. But that's just one part of the picture. So with my ex-husband, I initiated the divorce when my two oldest girls were adults and my youngest child was 11. He was unhappy about it, and he was uncooperative. I don't want to give a lot of details because this really isn't about him, but he often made threats. He made things difficult. There were some situations that were not in the best interest of the youngest's well-being, and she had visitation with him, so it was kind of a juggling act until she became an adult. Once she did turn 18, then I no longer had to deal with my ex-husband. We haven't had a relationship since. He did send me a Facebook friend request once about a year ago, and since there's been no honest communication, I just deleted that. My girls, all to my knowledge, do still have a relationship with him. He is very different from me. While my girls were growing up, all three of them, I was very hands-on and did all the caring and the cooking and the cleaning and the paying the bills, and he was more very much hands-off. So there was a big difference that way. The next question, and this one's probably the most common question that I get. Let me find the question here. Why do people need to air their family issues on social media? No one wants to get this deep. And it is a very legitimate question. And like I said, I've heard it over again, and it's really a personal choice. I actually have an entire video out about why I speak publicly, and I'll link that here for you while I'm editing this video. But to answer it briefly here, I do it both for myself and for other people. Like, I feel like by talking and sharing here, I can bring some comfort to others in knowing that they're not alone. I can show others that they can have a life outside of estrangement. You don't have to live every day in pain. I'm not here to erase that pain, but I'm here to help other people learn how to cope with it and enjoy their life and be okay with it. I have found peace personally, but that doesn't mean that I don't continue to reflect upon all of this. I do reflect upon it. A lot of the questions and comments I get are just great, and those cause me to reflect, which is a good thing, because upon reflecting, that helps me find more peace. Also, by speaking publicly, this gives me a voice that I have never had. I've never had a voice. My entire childhood, I learned to be quiet. It's only been since this past summer that I've learned to use my voice, and it gives me a sense of self-worth to use my voice, because, you know, estrangement really does a number on your self-worth, and having that self-worth in and of itself provides even a larger layer of peace. There's also the common misconception out there that if you talk about your family estrangement publicly, that you're just airing your dirty laundry, you're trying to hurt your family, you're talking bad, you're bashing your family, and all of that, sharing things that we shouldn't be sharing. But I look at it different. I feel like all my life, my family has tried to silence me, and I'm not putting anybody down. That's not my intent. I'm not telling my story is not putting somebody down. I'm sharing my story. I'm shedding light on what is often perceived to be a taboo subject. Shedding light on the stigma that I must be a bad parent or I must have done something horrible, because that's not often the case. And like I just said, I'm not here to be silenced. I'm here to say no more to that silence. We're allowed to have a voice. Us estranged parents are allowed to have feelings and thoughts. It's not just all about our estranged children. So silence is not the answer. Silence certainly isn't going to make a reconciliation happen. So in my opinion, reflectful discussion is what is really needed. And I hope that all made sense, but you can listen. Like I said, I have that entire video out about why I speak publicly. Moving on to the next question. Why don't you simply ring them and ask if they can explain what the problem is from their perspective? Let them rant and rave and burn themselves out if necessary, but then there may be some healing once they've let their anger out. And that's another great question. I mean, logically, you would think that would be the way to go. And honestly, I would love it to go that way in my family. But personally, I have tried this with no successful outcome. I have read many other stories where others have also tried this with it not working. Estrangement is it's a very painful thing, which if you're an estranged parent, you know the feelings. And it's really important for us to protect our mental health. So I feel like if we were to open the door to being bashed, if you will, and letting our children just rant and rave at us, for me, it's not the way to go, because I have set a personal boundary of no disrespect. And maybe some people don't realize that one can tell you what their issues are. I don't know how to say it. Explain what their grievances are with you. You can do that without being disrespectful. I find that to be very rare, not just in estrangement, just in everyday life things. If somebody is bothered by you, it often comes out in this spew of angry words and disrespect, but it doesn't have to be that way. And that's to protect my own mental health. I have that self-boundary, and that self-boundary has caused me a lot of peace. My family has not been able to do that. Healing would have to come from a mutual respect, communication, accountability on both parts, because estrangement is rarely just one-sided. It's a lot more complex. You have to be willing to to listen to each other. And I sit here, when I read this question, I just pictured in my mind, if I called up one of my daughters, first of all, would they even hear me make a request asking for them to let me know what their issues are, and then just sitting there and allowing them to yell at me for however long it would take? I don't see how that would do me any good. It would just erode any of the self-worth that I feel. Realistically, if I did let them yell and curse me out and put me down and tell me about all these things they think is bad about me, and then all of a sudden they're going to let me speak and then healing will start, I don't think that's a realistic thing that ever happens. And I'm, again, just speaking for myself, and in my dreams I could think that happened. So again, it's a great question. I appreciate it, and from the surface it does seem like, honey, just tell me what's wrong, and we'll work it out and we'll move on. And I wish it were that simple, and there wouldn't be, 1 out of 4 people in the United States estranged, I think, if that were the case. This next question, the viewer wrote, did you ever attend Alanon? I did, and it was very helpful. If you experienced that type of trauma during our youth, it would have had a huge impact on your personality. Well, first of all, I just assume she means Alanon, because I've never heard of Alanon. I know there are some other organizations, so I'm not entirely sure if she's talking about Alanon, and if she is, I would assume she's talking about the fact that I have said that my mother is an alcoholic. And in any case, the answer is no. I've never attended any kind of meetings like that, but I do believe they are very good, helpful organizations. Next question. In my opinion, my mother would triangulate. She would tell one set of persons a certain story and another group of people a different narrative. Consequently, there was constant confusion. Mom has been dead for over 10 years. To this day, I'm still finding out lies that she told to members of our nuclear as well as the extended family. Why didn't anyone ever question what she was saying? Well, first of all, thank you for sharing. This is something I can definitely relate to, and I can see and I do understand how this can be very confusing even long after the situation. I think many times that our nuclear family and extended family don't say anything is because they don't like conflict. They try to avoid conflict, and they don't want to rock the boat. They might be afraid to speak up for fear that the mother will treat them in the same way. Some of them might even take it on as a truth. They adopt it and believe it, and this is what I believe happened in my own family with my brothers. They just took on and adopted the negative family narrative my mother created about me. So it definitely can fracture relationships, and I believe that's the root of the estrangement between me and my brothers. It can definitely have huge and very long-lasting effects. I can only imagine what has been talked about in my family behind my back. I know that I've overheard my mother say things about me behind my back when she didn't think I could hear, so I can only imagine that the things that she said that I didn't hear. I can imagine that would be like tenfold. But one thing to know is that the simple fact that you are aware of this triangulation that's going on, that in and of itself is very validating. What you need to do is just trust yourself, even when others accept the false narratives, because just being true to yourself, authentic to yourself, that's what is most important. And what I keep saying about them is just let them. This is the last question I have for this video, and this person is asking for advice. So her statement is what to do when one daughter ghosts you and the rest of your family thinks you're making too much out of it. Even though they have a good relationship with her, I feel like I am going crazy or my emotions just don't matter. Sweep it under the rug. Advice, please. It's been going on for 4 years. Okay, so first of all, let me acknowledge that this feeling of am I crazy is normal. Your grief, my grief, our grief is real, even though others might not acknowledge it. This kind of grief, when our estranged child is still alive, is like invisible. It's invisible grief. It's quiet, it's overlooked. Your child is still there, so some people just tend to think of it as, not being big or important enough. And feeling hurt does not equal overreaction. It means you're human. And to me, silence equals complicity. I did a video about that as well. That's when people know what's going on and they stay quiet about it. And to me, that shows that they are aligning themselves with your estranged child. So in my family, it's been more of complicity through silence, and in this viewer's comment, it's more like complicity through dismissal. They are minimizing her feelings, and it's invalidating. Yeah, I'm looking at my notes because this is a tough thing to talk about. And they both, silence, complicity through silence and complicity through dismissal. I hope you're getting the difference. The silence is when your family member or friend or somebody just sits back and doesn't say anything. It could be taken as aligning with the estranged child because they're not sticking up for you. And then dismissal, like in this case, of just telling this person that she or he is overreacting. Silence is kind of like, I'm staying out of it. I've heard that from my own family. I'm just staying out of it. I don't want to get involved. I'm not going to fight your battles for you. And in this viewer's case, this dismissal is basically saying, you're the problem. In both cases, in both instances, it's protecting the peace at your expense. I think dismissal hurts a bit more because it questions your sanity. Like if you're saying you're overreacting, you do start feeling like, am I crazy? Is something something wrong with me. It's like an emotional gaslighting type thing, because it makes you doubt your own reality, doubt your own thoughts. It adds more shame to the shame that we already have. But you do need to realize that not everybody who does this means harm by it, but it still happens. Most likely it's not intentional, but it's okay. I think, like, for me, I kind of feel like this is where boundaries come in place, because it's kind of like, well, they're dismissing me, now I'm going to dismiss them. And it's not, I don't mean this in like a tit for tat thing. It's more like putting yourself first. And when you put yourself first by setting the boundaries, by dismissing them, and I'm going to talk about what I mean by dismissing them here in a minute. And you put those boundaries in place, it takes the control away from them and puts the control on you. You're in control. And when you're in control, that gives you more self-worth and peace. And what you need to do is no longer allow them to invalidate you by dismissing your feelings. And I'm going to give you some ways you can do that. So one way that you can set boundaries is somebody brings something up that to you feels dismissive. You can verbally say something to them. You can say, this topic is very painful for me. Please respect that. Or you could say something like, I need space to process this my way. Just if you're comfortable to do that, you can set that boundary. You can verbally, say something like that, come up with what feels comfortable for you to say, and then walk away from it. You do that a few times and see them stop bringing it up. They probably will. It helps your self-esteem. It gives you a sense of power and control, not in a bad way, but like I said, that really helps your self-worth. Those are verbal things you can say. You can step back. I don't know what this viewer's situation is as far as gatherings. I know I've read many stories about estranged parents being invited to events that their estranged children are going to be at, and that can be very stressful. So if that's the case, you could limit those things. Sometimes we don't want to hear about what our estranged children are doing. Sometimes well-meaning people will say, well, your son is doing this or doing that. And if that's painful for you, just say, please don't talk to me about what my child is doing. It's painful for me. And then communication can go a long way. And I know, like, a lot of us worry about hurting somebody's feelings, but our mental health comes first, right? And there's nothing wrong with that at all. So anything that feels invalidating, if they say something or do something that you don't like, let them know and set that boundary. Then there's the internal boundaries, because we have this internal thing that goes through our head, and one thing we need to accept is the fact that a lot of these people are never going to understand. So in that case, it really helps if you could self-validate. And one way you can do that is find validation elsewhere, through online community, such as my channel here. The Facebook support groups for estranged parents are another way. to help you not feel so alone. Find one trusted friend or somebody you can talk to, somebody safe. That also goes a long way. Because these outside voices, we might not be your family in the bio sense of the term, but we can help validate that you are not crazy and you're not crazy. And we can remind you that you're not alone. I think one thing we need to do is start trusting ourselves. I know it's easier said than done, but trust your own perspective. I mean, internally that you're a good person, right? So your healing doesn't depend on your child's approval. It doesn't depend on my approval. It doesn't depend on your family's approval. It starts with reclaiming your self-worth. And like I said, setting boundaries is an awesome first step in doing just that. Now, I also understand, because it happens to me, this internal dialogue that we have, the stuff that runs through our head. That's, I think, one of the hardest things, because sometimes it's like we're having to convince yourself. You just have to say, I matter. My feelings matter. This is about them. This is not me. Not about me. Even if you have to write it down and post a big note on your bedside table or refrigerator. It helps if you have a supportive supportive spouse, friends. For me, I have a very supportive wife. Friends who support me, other family on my wife's side who are supportive. I find self-worth in giving to others through my hobbies, creating things to look forward to. And at first, sometimes you have to force it, especially if you're a newly estranged parent, and try to shift that focus away from them and make the focus about you, and realize that that's not a selfish thing. That's a good thing, because even if reconnection will happen, which is possible, you want it to happen when you have the best version of yourself. Your life does not revolve solely around your children. So don't wait for it. You need to find joy in living right now, and meaning, and know that it's okay to grieve, and it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to protect your peace, and you don't need anybody's permission. So I hope that's helped you a little bit. I'm not a professional or anything. I can only share my perspective and what I've found helpful for me personally. So that's it for this Q&A video. Tomorrow you can look forward to a video. It's the one I've been talking to, where I'm addressing another viewer's question and comment, asking that I elaborate on my childhood and my daughter's childhood, to kind of give more insight on my family estrangement. So that will be coming tomorrow. I do have a lot more in the works. I do read all your comments. I will continue to do Q&A videos. I look forward to them. Please, if you have any question or comment or anything, put that in the comments. And I'll say, like I've said before, if you do have something that you'd like me to talk about, please make it like its own brand new comment instead of in response to somebody else's comment, because I don't see those on YouTube Studio. So making your own comment is is very helpful. And also just anything that you'd like me to talk about. And please take care of yourselves, and I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.